was young. It's not my problem. It's not my problem.
All right, welcome to the Prospect Podcast. Coach Schumann, I'm here as always, and I have to my left Coach D, and we're excited to talk with a fantastic guest today. We'll dive into some high school football, some helping coaches get better in the youth sports realm, which I'm personally probably more excited to talk more about. But so we're really excited to have Coach Chris Haddad with us today. He owns Victory Sports. It's a platform for coaches looking to really improve and learn and get better. And then he also is obviously a defensive coordinator, wide receivers coach at Bellingham High School, which is where he went to high school, I believe. So we're excited to talk to him, and we're going to talk about a number of different topics with him. He's in this space as well with the podcasts and dive into everything in content creation and helping coaches get better. So we're really glad to have you on, Chris.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm excited.
If you could dive into your kind of journey as a coach and leading up to this point, and then we'll kind of roll to there.
Yeah, so I started coaching in 2015. I believe it is now. Straight out of college, I played football at Curry College. I did 4 years there. And then right out of college, I just didn't get into coaching, which I highly regret now. I think I waited a year and a half, close to 2 years before I actually got into it. And then I was fortunate enough, my father actually got the head coaching job at my alma mater at Bellingham. So naturally, he recruited his sons. So me and my younger brother, we both jumped on staff, and yeah, we've been there about 12 years now at Bellingham High School. I run the defense, my brother runs the offense, and my father's the head coach. So yeah,
shit.
I always say when you open the next day, if we win or lose, you always know which Haddad is happy, which one is not so happy. So
that's wild.
Yeah, it's awesome though. Like, I always say, like, initially
there's no one to blame there either. Geez.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Poor mom.
Sorry, mom, it's Haddad's fault. That's it.
Yeah. My mother's, she's a saint, so she deals with a lot. But yeah, in the beginning it was a little bit rough in the sense of, like, we just had to figure out our working dynamic. I'm sure if you guys have brothers, anyone listening has brothers or a father that you haven't necessarily worked within, and I'd say a semi-professional setting, because what I do with Victory is football, right? So having to separate the two of what's business and what's actual coaching was tough for me at first, but now we're going on 12 years, and it's been an absolute blast. And I think I wouldn't really want it any other way, coaching my brother and my father, and we've got a good dynamic where we all kind of stay in our lanes, and everyone is doing what needs to be done, but from a head coach, a coordinator, and offense coordinator perspective, we're not stepping on each other's toes.
That's phenomenal. I coached with my father for 5 years back in early 2000s. So I get that. I coached track with him there, and I understand the dynamic. And then he was actually my assistant in my very first head coaching job. He was my assistant coach. So he had to coach football in 30 years and came back to, I said he was basically pure motivational and helped recruiting our guys to go out for track as well. But exactly. But like,
still coaching, by the way.
I get the dynamic. I listened to. I think I listened to him better than he listened to me, though. I definitely think that from that standpoint.
100%.
Really cool stuff. Interesting background. I didn't realize that was the background as far as from a coaching standpoint. Talk a little bit about First of all, what made you want to get into coaching? And then I definitely want to dive heavy into the Victory Sports stuff. But talk a little bit of what made you get into coaching. What was kind of the idea behind you wanting to get into it and kind of developing there?
Yeah, it's a great question because I always think back to this because I remember when I was younger, I always wanted to coach. Like when I was 12 years old, and I think my father was coaching Pop Warner, my younger brother at the time. Like I was just always around the football field. I just always wanted to be involved with the X's and O's. And I think from a young age that I knew kind of always wanted to do that. And like I said, you coach with your father too. Like I think being the son of a coach really helps tremendously because you always want to be like your father and do and replicate things that he does as well. So I think that's kind of where it all started from. And then once I got into the Victory stuff, I was just like, oh wait, there's a need for like to teach other coaches and for coaches to get started. I think right now it's just if you're a new coach, it's like, okay, I signed the dotted line, then what? Right. And I think, yeah, I think a lot of us are just thrown to the fire and you know, Coach D, you said it earlier before the show was started to record, but it's like what your high school coach taught you when you played, right? And that's kind of your baseline of where you want to go from. So we try to provide resources for that coach who's just starting out or just looking to build a foundation. We're hoping that can be the home for that coach. So that was the thought process of kind of where I started coaching and then how it kind of developed into Victory. And then we've been at it since 2017 officially. So it's been an absolute roller coaster of a ride, but that's kind of where the thought process of coaching to turning Victory into a business.
And Coach, it's something that's it's so overlooked within the coaching world. And look, this spans across sports, right? Like this is not just football, just coaches in general, right? I mean, you look at the youth level where the impact is so important, yet those are the guys with either the least experience or they're volunteers or they're just a dad that's kind of signed up to it. And like you said, there's nobody that really goes into at any level, really. I mean, you see some guys talk about coaching coaches. It's something that I really started to understand the further along I got in my career, how important it was to, learn how to coach, what to coach, because most guys that just play think they can go coach because they played and they don't really understand the teaching aspect of it or just all the intricacies that go into what being a really, really good coach is. And there's so many different avenues to what a good coach is, right? It's not just X's and O's. It's not just discipline. But to go back to circle back, coaches coach the way they were coached. And like you said, depending on what era you grew up in, that coaching style has changed, right? Or the technology is different. The approach to the game is different. The things that are focused on are different, or the things that parents complain about for the most part are the same, but easier access to complain about them, right? Because they can shoot an email or a text right now and it's just different. But I think where did the premise come from to start something formally to coach coaches? Was there an explosion of something that, you know what I mean? Like, what was the trigger point for that really like, hey, we need to do something and let's try this? Where did that all come about?
Yeah, I'll take you to I always like telling the story because I think it kind of builds a foundation of how we started. So it was our first game. I was a special teams coach, kind of like yourself, Coach D, and when I first started. So I was the special teams coach, and I had a track kid who got through clean. We had a punt block. I set up all week. We got the look we wanted. If we blocked the punt, it's within their territory. We probably go score and win. Our guy gets through clean, and instead of tackling the punter, that's how clean he got through. He waited to block it off his foot and missed it. And the ball, boomed off the kid's foot. The field was flipped. We ended up losing the game. And I remember the kid coming off the field. I was like, why didn't you tackle the punter? And like, he snapped back in the heat of the moment. He was like, I can't. That's roughing the kicker. And I was just like, oh boy. Like, I didn't get mad at that moment. It was like one of those like, oh, okay.
You're like, that's rules. On me. Like,
he doesn't
that's
know the
on
rules.
me.
It's my fault, 100%. It's not the kid's fault, right? So that's where it was like our first or second game of that year from 2015. And that's kind of where the bug in my head started. And I was like, wow, if these kids don't know the rules, it's not the kids' fault, right? And I always say that it's never the kids' fault. The kids are just soldiers in the army, right? That's all they're pieces on the chessboard. It's like we develop them and we create them and, you know, build them up mentally, physically, everything from there. But especially from a mental standpoint, I was like, okay, so what I did was I went and built a mobile app to help kids learn, right? That was my thing. So I spent 6 months building this mobile app, put my heart and soul to it. And, you know, I was like, my big marketing thing was I'm going to push it to the kids and the kids are going to learn football this way. Well, again, like we just talked about, it's not how it works. You got to teach the coach first, who's going to then teach the kids. So that's where we pivoted our model after that. And then that's where it's all been from there, is just how can the coach learn, that way he can create that foundation for the kid. But going back to your point, Coach D, it's like the coach only knows, and like these youth coaches that are signing up, they're doing a great thing by signing up. Like I'm volunteering my time to get this, to give to these kids. But I think a lot of times,
that's the hardest part. I mean,
100%.
Look at the high school level. It's hard to find guys now that are willing, you know what I mean? That are, you're going to get some money to do this, that are willing. Like, it's one of those fields that like guys just don't sign. Like, it's not something that a lot of people want to do in any way, shape, or form.
Right. And as you know, it's like if you
at that level, right? Like at that level.
Right. And if you come from coaching maybe youth basketball, youth baseball, like you can have one kid dominate, right? Maybe one scorer that can just weave through everybody and score. And obviously youth football is different because you need that line of scrimmage to block. You need to get the ball to the running back who then can weave out and through. So there's a lot of pieces. And then defensively, you got to stop their running back, who's probably a stud as well. So I think a lot of that, and that's kind of where the picture started to form for me. It was just like, how do we get this education for the coaches that they can access and then teach their kids? And of course, the tackling goes into it, how to structure a practice, like all those little things you just don't think about when you sign that dotted line, because it's all of a sudden, it's like, oh, here's 20 kids. Good luck. It's like, well, I got to manage 20 kids, right? I got to keep them moving. I got to keep them paying attention. I got to get them executing plays. Like there's just so much that goes into, as you guys know, coaching football, but especially at the youth level. It's, you know, how do we get that out of them? And the last thing I'll say here too is just, like the biggest thing, at least that we found in our research, it's like the experience matters more than anything else. Like the wins and losses, yes, they matter, but the experience for the kid. Like I always say, when the kid leaves your practice and gets in the car with his parents, what is he saying to his parents? Is he saying, Mom, that practice was awesome? Or is he getting in there with the shoulder slumped down saying, oh, you know, Coach John just yelled at me again and I hate it here and it's the worst? And, you know, a lot of coaches that we talk to, they always talk about wins and losses. I'm like, no, think about retention. Think about bringing those kids back next year. Like that's what you really got to start to think about. And again, just think about experience. Like what is that experience that's going to make a kid go, I can't wait for football next year? Because each year, and this is for a high school level too, like does last year look like this year? And if it does, you're doing something wrong. Like I need to make every year, I got to build upon it. Just by adding new technology, adding new ways you stretch, adding new ways you get hype, whatever it may be. It's just building on what you did last year. So two things are just, again, the engagement and then how a coach is actually structure everything. So that's my long-winded answer for the question that you asked about how I get started.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. What, you know, with respect to coaches, like, and you see them come in, you probably have a lot of youth coaches that probably get into that space too, because they're volunteers to try to figure it out. What do you try to help? So you talked about retention, but football's a difficult sport. So as far as physically goes, what are some of the things that you try to help advise them to like do within their practices to make sure that they can, you know, help athletes develop and continue to grow and those kind of things in football?
Yeah, I think the big three for me are, one, you got to keep them moving. I think if kids are standing around, they get bored. And when they get bored, they talk. And when they talk, they fool around. And then the coach just gets angrier and angrier, right? So one, you got to keep them moving. And that could be either cutting your lines down. That could be, we work with the youth program. I love this. They have stations. So they'll have their offensive line coach at every level. All the offensive line coaches will get together and then they'll just rotate within there. So every offensive line is getting coached by a different coach and they'll work different, and they'll work different techniques within. So, but again, like we've worked with them with their philosophy of like, don't let kids stand around, because when you stand around, you get bored, right?
You got one kid going in a drill, the line's 25 long, and like we talk about it all the time. It's one of the biggest eye openers. Dave talks about it specifically, or if you go to one of these like college mega camps, right, and there's one guy going taking a rep, and everybody else is just like sitting there waiting, right? It's like those little things that you can tell them, break the lineup or change the drill to add more guys going at the same time. Like that stuff. Yeah. Coaches don't think about that.
Yeah. And there's a fine line too, because I think if the lines are too short, you get gassed out, and you don't want to be dragging ass the entire time because you're gassed out. So there's definitely a fine line between keeping them moving, but then keeping them at full speed, right? Because that's how we develop speed. So I think that's 1 and 2. But if you can teach kids, like if you're working down blocks as the offensive line, you're teaching them the first step. It's like, okay, have 3 guys up as opposed to just 1 guy up. And that way you can, coach them, and the next guy's up in line. And again, we're just keeping them moving. That way everyone's engaged. So I think that'd be my first one. Number 2 would be they got to compete. And there's got to be winners and losers, because I think kids rise to competition. And I think if you want to develop kids within the game to be able to win, right? And I think, a lot of coaches will say play multiple sports, which I 100% agree with. But I think the benefit of playing multiple sports is you're able to compete in multiple things, right? So big thing, especially when you structure your practices too, it's like, how can we create the one-on-one competitions, or just ways that, maybe players are just getting off blocks. That's a win and loss situation. But kids love competing. And if they're just going through the motions and not competing and not challenging themselves, again, I think boredom sets into that. And then the third one is just, you got to have fun, right? I think if everything's so tense and it's always so tight, there's no fun that's into it. And I don't mean fun in a way of like, I think the word fun kind of gets mixed up, where it's like everyone needs a trophy. I don't mean it in that sense. I mean it in a sense of like, if we're doing I just got back from our lifts. We did a tug of war competition with our kids in our weight room. It was 2 versus 2. So like everyone just found their best friend, and it was just like, hey, let's go. And they had fun, winners and losers again. But the aspect of it is we're going to compete. We're going to be up tempo. We're going to be upbeat. And that's where the fun part comes out, because then when you ultimately win, that's the ultimate fun. But I think having competitions, having fun drills, creating, hey, if an offensive lineman catches a punt, there's no sprints today or something like that. Just like things to change the pace up. But it can't be just locked in serious the entire time, because I think from a youth perspective, that turns kids away as well. And the last thing I'll speak on this too is, if this is where I believe that kids have different outlets than us 3 did as kids, right? Because when we were kids, our best friends played football. We have to play football, even if it was a miserable experience. Well, now, because of online video games and everything, I can be connected to my friends in different ways. I don't need to go have Coach John yell at me the entire time to be connected with my friends. I can just turn on my Xbox, turn on my PS5, and I'm connected automatically, right? So I don't feel like I'm missing something by not going to football. So I guess that's what I mean in the sense of making the big 3 experience where they're having fun, they're competing, and they're being involved and not just standing around being bored, is what makes that experience, right? And I always say experience top notch, because again, how can we make those retention numbers as high as possible?
That's a great point. The experience that they have in all of those elements, like competing, trying to make it fun while they're learning. It's an art to it, but you have to have a system. I think it's important for coaches, and I'd love for you to talk more about it. The thing that I notice with even sometimes high school coaches, which is shocking to me. Okay. I've seen this with high school coaches too, which I was always shocked by this, but practice plans. Okay. And making sure everybody that's coaching with you knows what's going to happen today, and trying to stick to it as much as possible. You might have something might go slightly long and you don't do these 2 or 3 things till the next day. But from a time standpoint, sticking to the overall plan for the most part, and having a plan, I think is a key element for coaches, especially obviously youth. There's no doubt, but I can tell you that I coach my son's youth team, and I am the only person every single day with a practice plan. I am the only person.
Like
And
across the levels, you're saying, Dave? Like, you know, like
there's
like
not one guy. I've never seen anyone with a practice plan. Never. Never. Now they might, they might have plays on wristbands, stuff like that, but I've never seen a guy in and that to me is so surprising. And a lot of those guys have coached for a long time. Some of them were high school coaches at some point. So, and I think that it's two things. I'd love for you to talk about this, but it's two things. Number one, it keeps you on task. Okay. And number two, the coaches that are helping you who may not have the knowledge that you have, especially youth, they most of the time don't. If you're the head, they may have some knowledge, but they don't know where you're going with your practice. Having that, and I think that's different than a weight room workout. Like, you could write it on the board and have your general plan. I don't think you need, there are guys that do it. Like sometimes I do it, sometimes I don't. Sometimes you just need more, but like even there, like having some general plan, you know what I mean, that everybody knows they're coming in with. But that could be adapting in the weight room or speed stuff, depending on what the kid's feeling like. But for practices, I think you need to have that. And I'm surprised at how many guys not only don't do it, but are resistant to it. Like,
yeah, why do you think that is though?
You mean me? You're asking me?
Yeah, I'm saying in general. No, just in general. Like, why do you like you see it firsthand? I think
coaches. I think. I mean, I know how I am. I'm like this. Hey, I know what I want to do. Like, I don't really have to do a practice plan. I know what I want to do for practice. Like, it's already sequenced in my head. I could actually explain to my coaches very quickly, but I give it to them because I know. Like, as soon as the first year I did it intermittently when they were 8U, and then by the middle of the year I was doing it all the time because they started to ask for it, right? And as soon as they were asked for it, I was like, oh my goodness, these guys want to know what's getting covered. It helps them, right? And now in high school I always did it, but like I realized that youth, even like they want to know what's going on. And now, having been an assistant, I could tell you that like guys have a practice. Like, I've coached with some really good coaches who never had a practice plan that they handed guys. Like, I mean, really knowledgeable and winning, like successful in winning. I could tell you there's a lot of times when I'm just waiting for him to tell me where are we going to next. Like, and I was special teams coordinator, in one of those groups. One year when my first job, I was a position coach. So I just followed it was my first year coaching. I just followed whatever I did, but I was shocked there was no practice plan because I came from college where, like, I remember my coach had his practice plan in his, in his hip, you know what I'm saying? And he would look at it each time. Oh shit, we got to be over here. You know what I'm saying? Oh shit, let's move. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what happens. Like, you can get way off track time wise. It keeps you back on track. If for some reason you get a little bit late on something, it gets you back on track. Then you also know, you know what? Holy shoot. Like I told the parents, an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes. I'm in an hour and 35 minutes right now. I got to wrap it up, dude. Like, I don't care that I didn't get to these 3 or 4 things. Like, let's finish out this last drill or whatever, and we wrap it up, and we'll start here tomorrow, So talk a little bit about that, because your advisor coach is like, I think I found that that's probably helped my assistants more than anything, having that so they know what they're going to do, especially with stations, right? What station do I got? Oh, okay, there's 5 stations. I'm going to take this one. Cool, done. Like, then they all take their stations, So talk a little bit about that if you could.
Yeah, I would think like organization is the biggest thing, right? And I think making sure you get everything in when you want to get into it. This is something like when we first started, we had a loose script. It was like, we're going to go D&D, we're going to go inside run, then we're going to go team, right? And it was just like, we used to chunk it out in 3 phases. And then I started to meet with college coaches and NFL coaches. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, the reason we script isn't necessarily to keep, it's to keep the practice structure organized, but it's also to keep every single coach on track, like you said, right? So you don't lose those 3 to 4 periods at the end of practice and go, oh crap, I got to stuff things in, right? also too, it helps. And I don't know if you've ever coached with coaches like this. I certainly have. It's when you have that coach that likes to explain, let's say it's a 20-minute period. He explains things for 18 minutes of it. And then oh crap, I got to do right. So the shorter periods, in my opinion, do two things. Like we run 10-minute periods, we'll go anywhere from 5 to 10 for like the indie stuff. And then the team stuff is right around 10 to 15 ish. And we have a script, offensive script, defensive script. So we know exactly what we're running, what we're going to see, their top plays that they run. So I think not having a script, I think you lose that element of it. But two, like we just talked about with the youth coaches, right? Like we got to keep them moving. So if that period is 10 minutes long, but I don't have a script on me and I'm not keeping track of time, it could turn in, like you just said, it happens all the time. Like you're into your own drill and go, oh crap, we've been running for about 20 minutes now. We got to rotate these kids. So I think knowing that if I have a 10-minute period, I can get XYZ done in 10 minutes before I hit the whistle and rotate those kids to get to the next station. So I think it chops down the time for the coach that just likes to talk, because he's going to get 0 reps if he just talks the entire time. We also have a coach too, which may help the coaches listening. It's my brother runs it, but like he'll be in track of the time. So like one coach is always in track of the time, and he'll yell a 30-second warning.
Yep.
So like
it's like a at the high college level, right? You have your DFO, right? And he's constantly either blowing a horn or keeping guys on track. I mean, and that's at the highest level. And like you said, I think that regimented, like keeping practices, keeping time periods, right? Like you said, and I used to be that way, right? Like I would explain for so much because I wanted to get on every little detail and make sure everybody knew it. Yep. And then before you know it, we don't even get through the line. And that's a problem, right? Because so it's more of, and I learned a lot about, hey, you got to teach, Nick Saban says it the best, right? Like even like every drill needs to be taught in a meeting, right? And then explained and then shown, right? So you can hit on, your visual learners, your guys that, listen when that need to hear it, right? Because everybody learns different, and ultimately coaching is teaching, and you kind of got to get all of those things across and know your team. Is this going to take a little longer for my guys to get it? Do they need to be doing it more to get it across, right? And I think that's with a structured practice plan, it helps to keep hitting and to let guys know that they got to hit on all of these things, and like, here's where it's going to end and we got to move, right? So I think that's a big piece of it as well. And younger guys, they just don't, they get so wrapped up in it that before you know it, oh my God, where'd my time go?
Yeah. And I think another thing too, if you don't have a coach that wants to keep time on his hip, and you have a parent that's reliable, that's always there, like they could even sit there with a whistle and air horn. Yeah. Hey, every 10 minutes.
Get somebody else involved. Like you said, you had a GA, right? Or a kid who's injured. They know how to work a stopwatch. Here you go.
So
you know what I mean? Like,
there's a few things that we've actually built into
do that with the wristbands. There's always a kid that's out for some reason.
Yep.
Especially young.
We use Coach. We're talking technology, like we use the go routes, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So we have them. Dave has them. Like, just another piece of it. Like somebody runs that. You know what I'm saying? Like these guys, they want to be involved with the technology stuff too, as well, to keep everything structured. And for parents, like when you say practice is over, like practice is supposed to be over at a certain time. Like I'm picking my kid up. I just worked, 12 hours. Like make sure like it's time. You don't want to constantly be that coach that's always running over and doing those things, because now it creates that, that negative vibe around your program. Like this guy doesn't know how to do things.
Yeah. And the other thing too, which we've done, this is more for the high school coaches listening, is we'll turn on the scoreboard. So we have direct Bluetooth access to our scoreboard. So, or if it's an injured kid, like he'll be in the booth working the scoreboard. But again, like so if we have an injured kid, he has the practice script, and he knows I'm putting 10 minutes on the scoreboard. That way everybody can see it's a 10-minute period. And when that horn goes off, we're rotating. The other thing too, which we've done, and
that is awesome. Must have been nice to be in Massachusetts, Dave. With a scoreboard that works too. Bluetooth access, like damn.
I was just thinking that maybe I'm gonna get like a one of those sidelined timers.
Like So when
because there's in youth there's 3 teams practicing on the same field, and I can't see what everybody else is doing. I just So and we have a scoreboard.
Or do you want to?
Well,
So what we do is we're only on the turf like one day a week. The rest of the time we're on the grass, which is a side field. And same thing, we bought like a timer off Amazon, and the kid just reloads it. So but like I don't really pay
It seems
attention. I
like
hear
basketball coaches utilize that, right? Like
essentially,
because
yeah.
you're in the gym and it's hey, time on the clock. Like, all right, we're
Absolutely.
going 10 minutes period. We use that in high school all the
Yeah.
time. That's really
It just
it's just it's something that's it seems so simple, and you're like, damn, why didn't I think of it? But like you
Right.
don't because you're thinking about 1,000 other things.
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. Like I'm always trying to, and my brother always rags on me about this, but like I'm always trying to optimize this like every second of practice. So even our water breaks, like we don't have water breaks. And I know like youth coaches listen to this, have your water breaks. I think you have to. But like for us, we found that injured kids, and our trainer helps us sometimes too. It's like, can we just fill the water bottle? We'll just leave them around the field. So like we don't have a water break.
I find myself grabbing a water bottle every now and
Yeah.
then, right? Like if
Yeah.
the defense is out there and I'm kind of, hey, quick square, or
That's it.
sometimes guys are like, Coach, I don't need it. You can steal. That's where you steal a couple minutes, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, all right, well, blow the whistle. Let's roll.
That's it. And I don't like the only rule that we have is don't hold up a drill because you're getting water. Like get water anytime you want. We don't care. It's just like if you're next up, I don't need to be waiting while you're doing this. Right. So, and it's been awesome. Like we don't like, again, because I think from a momentum standpoint, if you think about practice, right, like you always want to start here momentum wise and go up, and eventually it's going to plateau, right, as far as
Of course,
like energy and everything else. But I don't want this, and I think that's where we found that like those water breaks put a dent in our practice. Now there's times during the summer where it's like 90 degrees. We have to have water breaks.
Have to pull the strings, but
If
yeah,
you're
you got to
listening-
pull it back a little.
Yeah,
bit.
if you're listening from Alabama, you have to have water breaks because it's just it's 100
I
degrees.
mean, Florida,
you know?
there's a even game situations. They stop midway through the
Right.
first quarter for a water break, right? Like it's almost like a 2-minute warning within the quarters because it's built in.
Right. So again, it's like we're just fortunate because we're in the Northeast that we're able to do so. But yeah, for us, like again, we thought just the way to keep the energy of practice up and then plateau. How do we do that? And like one of the big dips was the water breaks. It's like everyone's stopping, then we got to restart again. So how do we keep them moving? Like we talked about, every 10 minutes that whistle hits. Okay. And then one other thing too, which I stole this from Coach Bob Chesney. He's at UCLA right now.
Oh, he's the best.
He's the best. He's the best. I was super
Northeast
fortunate
guy.
because I was super fortunate because he invited us on our staff up to Holy Cross when he was there. So I kind of got to see behind the scenes of how those guys were operating. And
he was at Assumption before that, I think.
Assumption before that and Salve before that. Yeah.
Yep.
So he does something which I love is when he hits the whistle, every period has a name to it. So if we're going D Indy, I'm going to hit the whistle and I'm going to yell D Indy, and every single kid yells D Indy. And then we transition to the next period. If we're going, we have a period called combo, which is like, it's like a bastardized inside run that we do. I'll hit my brother will hit the whistle, combo, and everyone yells combo, and then we transition. So there's no question of like, what are we in? What did coach say? Where are we
going?
That's it. And when that long, when that long whistle hits, it's not just like, okay, combo, it's combo. And everyone knows when that long whistle hits, we better be jogging to the next station and we're all yelling it together. So yeah, we've come up with, I believe we have 10 different period names. It could be a little bit less than that. I think it might be 8, but where it's like D Indy, O Indy, combo, inside run, D team, O team. We have a compete period where like, it's just a board drill. Everyone runs to the center of the field. We circle up around 2 kids. And it's like a 30-second board drill just to pump energy into practice.
Yeah.
We'll do that. We'll do a one shot, we call it, where everyone goes to the sideline and we've only got one shot to do it, whether it be catch a punt, complete a pass, make a block. It's usually a one-on-one situation. And we're going to favor the offense or favor the defense. So if it's a completed pass, it's obviously we want the offense to win. And when they do win, everyone runs and celebrates together. If they lose, it's a down and back on the sideline. So again, it's like we're trying to build in competition, but also trying to build in unity for the team too, where it's like, we got to teach these kids how to celebrate, right?
Yeah.
If you have a team that, just doesn't know how to get hype and they just don't know how to celebrate, well, let's try to pump it into practice. And the way we do that is with that compete period, and it doesn't dip. And that was like my biggest concern when we first started it was like, okay, are we going to get this dip here? But we don't. Like the energy stays high. And then after the compete happens, we have a winner and a loser, and then D&D, and then we'll break off back into wherever we need to get to. So we'll either start practice with a compete or we'll bake it into the middle of practice if we feel like the energy is starting to dip a little bit. But it's primarily a good way to start practice. And the kids know that once we're done stretching, like it's go time, buckle up the helmets, let's go. So it's been really good.
Very cool. Yeah, I think those are all really a good little things that help keeping it on task. What is so as far as like one of the things, you know, in coaching, like when you advise the coach that you work with or you try to teach them, like how do you help them modernize some of the stuff they're doing that they're reluctant to do?
Yeah.
Although it just said, you know, you just said that you ran sideline gassers, so after or something.
Yeah, just
So
a jog down and
I
back.
guess you're
Yeah,
not even
yeah,
that
yeah.
modernized, but I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
But it's well, I'm a big speed guy, so
Yeah.
the how do you help coaches modernize their style of coaching and helping them to update what they're doing? And high school coaches, I think, are for the most part moving pretty fairly well to you know, I don't know about, you know, bad coaches, but like your average to really good coach is you know, starting to do things right
Yeah.
from tackling and all those kind of things. You know, my experience is youth is like a mess. So that's just my experience. Like, and you know, if you probably were to ask other coaches about like what I do, they probably, well, he's a really good coach, but they're like, this guy's got all these different things going on that they don't understand. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So like I got go routes and you know all these different, you know, I have rugby tackling dummies, you know what I mean? Like everybody, you know, I don't know. I wonder how you advise guys to get into to convince them that there are better ways to do things when, like what we talked about right at the beginning of the podcast, they're going right back to that. And the two premium culprits of it are high school and youth coaches, right? Because college coaches are forced to adapt. I mean, you know, I use James Franklin as the example of that one. Like as good a coach as you could probably get, but still was running 3-hour practices. And eventually that, you know, you all right a state above him or to the left and above, Indiana goes and wins the national championship, talking about he's going an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Penn State people keep hearing it and they're like, wait a minute, what are we doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was he still winning a lot of games? Absolutely. Winning a ton of games, right? But the way that, you know, people who are trying to get to the top in college think about it is one thing to win games. You know what I mean? There are some places where it's, you know, you're winning games. That's a huge plus. And then there's some places that expect championships. And if what we're doing isn't winning championship or getting to a chance to win a championship, then there's a problem. So college is forced to adapt, really, because those guys are gone. Same thing with the NFL. They are forced to adapt to certain things. Otherwise, they won't make it success-wise. High school and youth is different, right? Like I've seen youth coaches and high school coaches doing old school stuff and win a lot of games. You know what I mean? This is why I'm saying it, because they are winning a lot of games. And how are you, you know, how do you try to help some of these guys move along that there's a better way to do things when you can go, this guy can go and say, hey, dude, I was 9-2, 9-3, 10-1. This guy over here was 7-4 modernizing. I mean, you know, who's right and who's wrong. So if you could talk a little bit about that, because I think that's the hardest part with high school and youth, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, and this is again, it's the hardest part. And I think two things. One, you got to have an open mind. I think if you talk to somebody who has a closed mind, we do it this way, it's very hard to change that person. The only way you can actually change that person is, and like you said it a couple times, which I agree with, is you got to adapt because things are wrong or things are bad, right? Like the coach that's 9-2 isn't walking around being like, I got to change this, I got to change this. He's like, I'm good, right? Because, and most of the time, and maybe he just has really great players, and that's why he's able to win so many games doing things, you know, or
there are guys that I say are great motivators, right? So there are guys that are bad with a lot of things they do football wise. I'm not talking about like
run through a wall.
Yeah, not their offensive line technique. They might be good at some of the technical aspects, but as far as philosophically and all those kind of things. I think maybe bad, but motivational are great. Like there are guys that are fantastic leaders, but then you watch their practices, you're like, oh my God, it's like John Voight, Varsity Blues over there. You know what I'm saying? So, and so that's the hard part in football, right? Like that is really the hard part. So I'll let you go from there.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I think
problems.
I think you got to have an open mind to adapt, but I also think too, like you got to think, and this is starting to, I think, happen now, which I'm actually really excited about. Is just I think coaches are starting to realize that you don't need, like you said, 3-hour practices. You don't need to bang heads every single day. Like there's ways to keep your kids safe, but still keep them aggressive. Right. And I think that's probably the biggest fear is like, if I'm not hitting them every single day, or if I'm not, cussing them out every single day, we're going to lose our toughness, lose our aggressiveness, which just simply isn't true. So what I would say to that coach is, you got to keep an open mind, right? Because I think there's always new ways to learn things. And I think the coach with the closed mind is going to be stuck in his ways. And if he's always going to consistently be closed out, and I've worked with coaches that are just like, nope, I don't like that. Not doing it. Not teaching rugby style tackling, even though it's proved to be safer, even though I'm keeping my kid's head completely out of the tackle, not doing it. So
they want nothing to do with it.
It's so tough and it's so disheartening to hear because
my whole entire youth program does not teach rugby tackling other than
right. And it's so tough
team,
because,
by the way, is the best tackling team by far, not even close.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the way it was explained to me, I don't know if you guys know Coach Andy Ryland. I had him on a podcast and he's fantastic. And he's like, you're asking your kid to put their head into the direct power source of a running back, which is when his hips are square and his knees are up. Like we're asking our kid to put his head there.
That's how I learned originally. I mean, that's
right. Well, again, it goes back to how you were coached to do things, right? Exactly. Like I don't care how many YouTube videos pop up or whatever. You were taught to, put your face on bite the ball, right? Like through the chest, like, you know what I mean? Like head on where that ball is.
I was taught to try to square up too.
Yeah. Now,
like literally, I mean, in college, think about trying to do that with guys running a 4.5 40 right in front of you, and I'm a linebacker, and I'm trying to square up. I mean, I can do it. Like,
trying to do it as an undersized. You know what I mean? Like here I am, 5'8", 180 pounds, and I'm trying to, square up and put my face on the ball and run through a 210-pound, tailback. You know, what are we trying to do here? Like. Obviously we didn't think about, like, I don't know. I think that's a whole different podcast in itself of the awareness of injuries and those types of things. Like I know I didn't think about that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like my coach told me to do it. I did it, plain and simple. Right. There's this kind of a new era with, the whys and the things and explaining things thoroughly of like, no, you're going to do it because of this, and this, right? And that's a whole different thing, but absolutely 100%. Like continue. Keep going.
And I think there's two different elements of it, right? I think there's they got to keep kids safe, which I 100% agree with. You have to, but I also think as safe as you can, right? Because it's football, it's a contact sport.
It's it is what it is. Like you don't sign them up for it. Like if you're not thinking like whatever, like it is.
And I think where a lot of coaches, I don't necessarily go wrong, but like there's another element to tackling, which I think a lot of coaches miss. Like when we think rugby tackling, right? It's just like, I'm going to tackle you but on the thigh board, bring you to the ground, try to finish on top. That way you're not getting an extra 2 or 3 yards falling over the top of me, right? But there's a whole other element with like your D-line, your linebackers. How often are they getting in low thigh board tackles? Not really often, right?
D-line is like never.
They got to block the struck. They got to get off blocks. And then it's usually either a 1-arm or a 2-arm up high tackle. So now I've added a whole nother element that I can't, like, I'll give you the perfect example of this. My linebacker last year was 6'2", 210. For him to hit a 5'6" running back in the thigh board was probably not going to happen. Right. So I need to teach him, how do we safely tackle up high where I can bring the hooks, run my feet on contact and be able to run through people, not get in that position. Now, if he's on the perimeter chasing, I want the head out of the tackle and try to attack it from a rugby perspective. But I think teaching kids and the coaches just the element of there's going to be multiple situations. There's no one situation that's the same that I'm going to be able to teach you in a drill about how to tackle. However, I can teach you that when you do get into a like situation, if I'm in the open field, how to hit a thigh board, if I'm confined within the tackle space, about how to get off a block and then keep my head to the side while I'm hitting you and then running my feet up and through. So I think there's definitely two elements to that. I think teaching a chase down tackle where you're trying to clip an ankle, I think there's different elements to teach of tackling where I think a lot of coaches will hear rugby tackling. We're not playing rugby. Why am I teaching rugby tackling? It's like, well, no, it's a shoulder style tackling that's going to keep your head out of the tackle, right? And like you look at the sport of rugby, like those people are running those players are running full speed at each other and they have to, without pads, take them down. So there's some merit to what they're doing and how it translates into what we're doing as football coaches. But again, it goes back to the open mind. If you have someone that's like, I'm not teaching rugby or shoulder style tackling no matter what, then you're going to get kids that are just throwing their face into the power source of a running back. And then you just got to live with the consequences, but the consequences aren't great. We're talking about our head here.
It's not worth it.
Like we're like
consequences because they're going to turn around now. I think high school coaches, I would say more high school coaches are obviously getting on board, but
yeah, for sure. And they have to, because a lot of states are
mandating. I was just going to say, some of it's force fed in terms of like, I mean, look, you can
Texas
say,
has mandated. Texas is if you're going to coach Texas public school football,
you got to be certified.
You got to be Avitus certified.
To
be able to coach, right?
Which is awesome.
So like I did the 2 levels, whatever it was, the 2 levels I think of certification, like the beginner and then the advanced, and you know, just that certification alone, it opened my eyes, like, and took me down a whole YouTube rabbit hole on it too. Once I got the certification, but what I realized too about the rugby tackle is that, you know, they also tackle up high too, because there's situations where they tackle up high. It's really about the angle and the power source that you have, which is your near foot, near shoulder, right? And to be able to deliver the blow properly from that standpoint. But they do have you know, I'm one of the probably few people in the world that have been, Derek probably has, because we do the podcast, but like we go through these rabbit holes and there's,
I was explaining it to you off air, right? Like sometimes you'll see the guest trend a certain way because our algorithms hit on like whatever it is. And then it just kind of takes us where we're
Absolutely. So there's all the different things. Like there's a low rugby tackle thing that they have, and they all have the nice little things where you can have the angle for your shoulder go in. But then they have the 3 level, which is the low, medium, and high, right? And this year I'll buy the 3 level one because the first 2 years of doing this was the second year. The second year of me doing it, I started introducing the rugby pads so they had better angles, and the low and the mid level, the thigh level, waist level one. And now I'm going to bring out the 3 level one. So we're going to teach them, okay, exactly what you said. You're a D lineman. Guys up high, you can't get yourself down low. Okay, now you're going to tackle up high. This is how you do it, right? Yeah. So, and I think that's, I think what you're doing is really important because, you know, just being someone that's been in, not just coaching at a high school and youth level, but also I was an NFL agent for 6 years and represented NFL players. So I've seen all the levels of guys, and I ran showcases all over the country with elite athletes, you know, 20,000 kids a year I would see for 15 years. And, you know, I've seen the different levels, and that's why I think it's so important, because everything that happens at the upper level, like when they complain about like quarterbacks that can't do certain things, I can tell you why quarterbacks can't do certain things anymore, because the guys they go and train with are teaching certain things, right? And I'm not saying what those guys are teaching are good, bad, or indifferent. I'm just saying what they're being taught is what you're going to get as they move up the levels. It's much harder. You were never going to change Tim. They tried to. You're never going to change Tim Tebow's style of throwing, although in all defense,
they tried.
Even in all defense of Tim Tebow, I always thought, why bother trying to he did win a playoff game. Like, just go with it, you know. But
guy's God's best friend. Like, why would you try to really chase? Like, what are we talking about?
He's God's athlete, you know.
Handpicked.
Handpicked, yes. But yeah, I think it was, you know, I think that's why you get certain things, right? So if a kid comes up to high school and you're like, oh my God, this kid's leading with his head all the time, and he, like, you can look exactly what just happened just 6 years before when he was playing youth. Guarantee it. Like, guarantee it. I could guarantee if I see a kid, and I didn't know it until I started coaching youth, right? Because I coached high school for 20 years. And I've told Derek this, like most places I coached at, whether it was good or bad, when I got there, most of those kids played youth except for one place where I was at Palisades Park, and we ended up going to state championship after 5 years. It was a horrible, horrible environment originally. Most of those kids did not play youth football. Okay. It just wasn't the culture. Most of them, I got them out. There was 3 or 4 that maybe 5 a year that did, and they were usually really good players. But they were clean slates. So everything I taught them was like a clean slate. So by the time they got to be juniors, I said, I don't know if you guys will be successful in college, even when they have great athletes. And they said, why? I said, you've learned this system. You don't know any other system. Like, they didn't know like play wise. If you told them like 28 sweep, they wouldn't know what the hell you were talking about, because for them it was Sweden. You know what I mean? So they didn't know what 28 sweep was. Like, everything was named, conventioned, and tagged, and they wouldn't know a route tree. You know what I'm saying? They would not. We didn't use a route tree. Everything was words, and we taught it, right? So they don't know H. They didn't know H, Y. So that's the reason why I bring it up. Like, we didn't use it. We used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as our number system. Okay. For players, and 0 for quarterback. So we used it that way. And I took that to youth, meaning like not only are all those guys numbered, all my linemen have a number now. So everybody has a number. Like, I could run sweep with my right tackle if I wanted to, because I would just give the ball, call his number and tell the play. But why I say that is when other levels get them, that's what happens, right? So they're going to get them. They're going to be good at certain things. They're going to be not good at certain things. How do you you said open mind. I say it's like the easy answer, so I'm going to press you on it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Like, even guys who have open minds, like I would say me and Derek have become pretty open-minded. Like, I originally was a 3-hour practice guy.
Yeah, we weren't always that way. You know what I mean?
No, 20 years ago, I wasn't. I was that way.
It would have fought to say, like, no, this is the right way, right? Like, this is what it takes. And look, it was the same way for me.
I used to do Oklahomas in high school. Guys would look in 2003. I was an assistant coach. They would look over at what I was doing, and they would be like, "Holy shit, coaches! I was 27. Coach is crazy." Like, they're like, we thought we were tough with our kids. Like, I was over there, had my DBs banging. You know what I mean? So they were good tacklers, though. But but they might have had concussions, I think, in retrospect, half of these practices. So I say that to say, like, how do you say, like, what you might want to have an open mind? Like, you might want to look at these things.
Yeah. So I would look at 2 things. First one, I'd look at optimizing what you're doing in practice, right? And this is where I think it's a little bit tougher at the youth, but at the high school level, you can do it, is like, we film everything in practice, or we try to film everything in practice, because if I can show you, I mean, if something happens, I don't film it, then it's just theory, right? You're just talking back and forth. This kid kind of isn't doing this. This kid's not doing this. Like, let's get hard evidence, right? And that's taking out your phone. We have 2 iPads that are always going in practice. We got the huddle camera that turns on. So, like, we're trying to capture as much as we possibly can, so that way we can correct it with the kids. So I think, one, can you optimize? It's like, how you're doing things now probably isn't the best way. What is the best way? And then try to get to that goal where you feel like this is the best way to possibly do it. So I talked earlier about optimizing every minute of practice. We try to be out there an hour and a half. Like, I want to make sure all hour and a half, like, every minute counts. And I think that's like the new framing of that for me has just been huge the last 5 years, because now the minute I step in the door, like, I'm just trying to optimize every minute that I'm there. I'm not sitting around for 4 hours BSing with the coaches or anything like that. Yeah, we'll do a little bit after, but, like, again, I'm trying to optimize. 2, it's how can you think in progression, right? So what I'm doing from a defensive individual standpoint, is it just going from D Indy to team, right? And I'll use tackling for the for the example for this. A lot of coaches will go, let's tackle bags and then let's tackle people. And there's no bridge in between that. It's either we're going to tackle something that doesn't move and then we're tackling something that's running full speed at us. Like there's got to be that bridge aspect to it. And you can bridge it a couple different ways. One, you can bridge it with a moving bag, right? So now our body knows what it feels like to actually hit the ground and roll.
Yep.
Two, you can bridge it with Coach Truman, I think you talked about using rugby pads, right? So like now I have a moving target and I'm protecting both of us, right? As we're going to the ground.
Yep.
So, you know, maybe he's stationary and then we progress by him moving at us and then picking, he's going left or right. So now I have to react off of that, right? Then we can do some sort of short yardage one-on-one drill where like the running back just has to go around a cone right or left and it's a low impact. I'm taking them to the ground. And then we progress into the hard hitting team stuff because, and this is something that like we've spent the last couple of years, like really, really honing in on, especially from a tackling perspective. I truly believe that.
Well, especially being the DC.
Yeah, I mean, that too, right? But like and I'm going to have a big presentation on this, hopefully within the next couple of months. It's like my best hitter this past year played golf his 8th grade year, didn't even play football. And like some of the hits I'll show you guys, like running through people at the safety position. He's going to
like
be
old school highlight reel tape. Tough stuff.
Yeah, but like good technique, physical, not afraid to run through you. So it's like I use him as my use case because what did we do to teach that kid who played probably the least contact sport ever with golf into running through people? And like we focus so much on just building confidence. I think if you're a youth coach listening to this too, you need to start building confidence in kids and teach them what it's like to wrap up a pad, and fall to the ground. Like you gotta have that progression because I think too many times it's tackle this bag, hit a live person. And then when a kid doesn't want to hit a live person, we call them soft. It's like, no, the human body doesn't want contact, right? The minute you hit contact, your central nervous system goes, what just happened, and shuts down and your legs stop, right? So like we need to tell our bodies and trick our minds that the minute we feel contact, keep running those feet and keep going. Because if we just, again, I keep going back to the bag to person example. If a kid doesn't have the confidence and doesn't have the ability to run through things, he's naturally going to catch and fall back. And you see it all the time. These new kids that sign up to play football that never played youth because maybe their parents didn't let them, and they get into high school and they're not sure how to hit, and a coach just throws them into a hitting drill and they don't do well. And then the kid's confidence is killed because we just threw them into a hitting drill versus how do we progress? Like, what is that? And to answer your question, Coach Truman, it's like, what does that progression look like? And how are we optimizing that progression from day one when we're hitting bags to, day 30 when we're actually ready to step in and tackle live? So that's where I would start. And that's where like we started. It's just, I don't care if you've been hitting since you were 7 years old, you're going to go through this progression at the beginning of the season so I can rebuild your confidence to make sure that you can run through people, not just tomb and catch. Because as you know, that's where a lot of the injuries happen as well.
No doubt about it. Absolutely. There's a great Instagram page, and there's a lot of ones that are bad on some things, but there's a guy, it's SM Performance. He was a former rugby player. He must be in I don't know if he's in New Zealand or Australia, where he is, but his facility is just, it's a performance facility, but most of his rugby players that come in there for all the different tackling stuff, it's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. And he goes hard, dude. Like they don't go, like they're not going, like, it's funny because people's impression of it, I mean, they're going hard. He has the guys running with the pad, like basically almost full speed at a guy, like, you know what I mean? And because they're hitting a pad and because of their angle, like it's almost like there's impact, but there's almost no impact in a sense, you know what I mean? Because these are super thick rugby pads and they're designed to disperse it. Same thing when you watch like the All Blacks practice. I don't know if you ever watched any videos on the All Blacks practice, like how they do their drills and stuff. They have the crash pads and it's amazing. I mean, I don't mean to go down a rugby rabbit hole here, but it's amazing because you very quickly see like this is how you can get an extreme amount of reps because me and Derek have talked about this. I said, one of the things that football coaches don't realize is that obviously blocking, tackling is the two main components. of football, but there's not as much tackling in football as there is in rugby. So meaning every play, uh, you are involved in the tackle on every single play, and a lot of times multiple people are involved in them. And in a drive, you might have 15 tackles going on. You know what I mean? And then you come right back and you're doing it again, and you're doing it again. You're doing the whole entire game. Whereas like in a real game, the middle linebacker and the Sam and Will, they might be involved in a lot of that stuff, but the defensive lineman for the most part, like it's pick and choose, based off of like a play that comes near them. And DBs, maybe a safety is involved in that much, but the corners are not, right? So it's an interesting thing from that standpoint. So you can learn a lot about people that basically their whole entire game is just about tackling, right? It's really like the whole entire game is that, which I didn't know, by the way, until I went down I really didn't know. Like I used to, laugh in college and guys are like, I'm on the rugby team. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, all right, great. Like, and I had no idea, you know what I mean? Like, I'll hang out with you and drink a beer with you, but like, please don't tell me about like how tough your sport is. So, so I was like, I could say like, I was
little did we know.
Yeah. No, I was definitely that person. You know what I mean? So there's no doubt.
I mean, my college roommate played, right? And I'll never forget, like, there were some nights of like, he'd come home from a game and I'd be like, buddy, like, it was a club team. So did they have trainers?
Yeah,
no,
club.
But it's like, buddy, like, we got to go to the ER right now. Cause you don't like, you're saying shit. Like, I know you're that guy, but like, we need to like check this a little bit. But the conversations we would have when it came to tackling form, how you do it, you know what I mean? As he was a former high school football player transitioning to the rugby world, we were all still playing football at a higher level. Like some of those contact or like, it's very much like, it would always come back to like, well, dude, I'm just reacting, right? Like I'm just doing what's out there. And I think that's the hardest part is you can practice the form, the technique on a bag, on a live person, within practice, right? Because you want to try and mimic a game situation as close as possible, but you're never going to get the exact look, right? And in a game, what are you going to do? You're going to resort back to what your body tells you to do. So how can we take those reps in practice and create that muscle memory so that you're out there and when in a game, when you have that guy lined up and now you're going to go and do it, right? But it's also very reactive. And I tell guys all the time, like, yes, you're out there, you're on the field. I want you to do it the right way, but your body's ultimately going to take over at the end of the day, like no matter what we say. And it's just going to, whatever happens kind of happens. And that's the part I think that's really hard.
If you teach the right footwork over time, you start to develop the feel of what the power source is, meaning not that you don't tackle. Sometimes you have different angles that you might approach the player, but when your power source is involved in the tackle and it's when it's not. Like, once you start to get the feel for it, like, like I could tell you 10-year-olds that are like, they could point to they could tell them the other kids, no, like you want to cross here, blah, blah, blah. Now, the one part about the D lineman that is a really great point in this, but I do want to move on to another top, but is a really good point. And they're so big and wide, some of these D tackle guys, like what shoulder in for them, literally, and near foot is like, they're like covering the little guy's body, like the whole body, like, I mean, literally his whole body. So it is a little different from those big body guys. There's no doubt as far as, because they're so big, they might be doing it right and actually be covering the whole entire body of the person because they're so large. But should ultimately mean they take them down pretty easily. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious, systems wise. So systems wise, as far as guys want to run offensive system, a defensive system, where do I start? A lot of guys, like we talked about, I played in the wing tee. That's what I'm going to go start teaching with. Yeah. But then they start to see, like, even the wing tee, right? Like, I want to be in gun wing tee. And then, how do I get two more receivers out there? Okay. Well, I'm still running wing tee principles. So how do you help help them understand like what's a good system for you to run. Obviously, if a high school coach is involved with you, it helps. But if they're not, let's say they're not involved, how do they start to approach that part of it?
Yeah. So a few things. I'd look at your players first and try to build around them. Like if I have, let's say we're talking from a youth perspective, like I have fast kids all across the board and I don't really have much linemen. It probably makes sense to do some sort of wing tee because you can just work angle blocks the entire time and try to get those guys free. If I have big players, let's try to move them vertically and run some sort of power offense going vertically. So I would start at the players first. Second, I would try to get to my high school if I could and just like ask them for a dumbed down system. So that way we can transition our kids to the high school. I think that's always the best bet. But
are you big on, coach, not to interrupt you, are you big on the verbiage aspect of it? Like using the same terminology as middle school moves to high school? Like, are you big on that? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
is that kind of like a big philosophy for you? I mean, look, I see it just in terms of ninth grade moving up to, I don't know how your program is structured. If you have a ninth grade team and then a JV or a sub varsity, right? Like if that verbiage isn't what your system is, like we got problems, you know?
Yeah. You got to reteach it, which is tough, but also too, like, and I'll defend the youth coaches here. Like there's some high school coaches that just want nothing to do with their youth program. Right.
Isn't that scary? Like,
yeah,
it's just unbelievable.
Like, and they just don't want to teach them the verbiage. They just don't want to be associated with them. It's like, we'll deal with your kids when we get to us. And, you know, it stinks, but at the same time, like it's a real scenario that coaches do have to go through. So if you are kind of just thrown to the wolves a little bit and you kind of have to develop your own system, like A, I would do that. B, I would try to find some sort of resource online. You know, I think there's a lot of good systems out there that will teach you the X and O's from start to finish. And I think that's where I would start offensively. And then defensively, I would be in a system that I know I can dissect. And I think this is the biggest thing. A lot of defensive coordinators will just be like, oh, I'll just run a 4-4. Well, it's like, yeah, the 4-4 has issues, right? The 4-3 has issues. The 3-4 has issues. So like understanding when you're implementing those defenses, where are the issues? And then how do I solve those issues, right? So if I'm running a 4-4 and the team is running power against us, right? I would first learn what are popular offensive concepts. So what is power? What is counter? What does inside zone look like? What does wide zone look like? And so on and so forth. Because if I can then name all of those plays, and I always recommend this too for coaches that work with us in Victory, it's like, what's your sideline communication? When things break down, is it just blitz? Because it can't be that, right?
Yeah.
Like if we're getting ripped on power, we're either our three techniques getting blown off the football, we're not spilling the football, or our linebackers aren't scraping over to it because they're looking at the backfield who's giving us misdirection and we're not getting to the football, right? So every play really has a breakdown. Even simpler, inside zone. Everyone's moving vertical at you. We just got to plug our gap. Well, if we get greedy and we have two guys in the B gap, and A gap's probably wide open, right? But that process of how are we communicating on the sideline when things break down is what I believe that a lot of coaches miss. And they just think like, I need to do a 4-4 or 4-3, and that's going to solve everything, when like it's not, because you got to A, learn how to plug up when things go wrong, but B, you got to rally to the football, and C, you got to tackle. So I think those are the big three for me, as far as like when I'm coaching a system, so to say, it's, I need to have those elements in. And same offensively too. Like if I'm facing an overfront, I got to learn what an overfront is. I got to learn where the weakness is in overfront, the B gap bubble. Okay, let's run ISO with the B gap bubble and let's expose it that way. So again, every front has its weakness. I think when you're learning a system as a first-time offense coordinator or even a defense coordinator, it's like, what can hurt me and how can I expose the other team? And that's where I think a lot of the success comes from.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, I think building a system that fits your players, adaptive system with answers for things. You know, there's a lot that can go into it. How do you help them? So now you talk about building a system. Okay, guys don't understand communication. They don't understand what's the best way to communicate with your play. How do you try to advise them to communicate with their players? You know, like my advice would always be like, let's say offensively, and you were new to coaching, like I would construct well, I mean, I would construct plays on a wristband, but if you weren't going to do that, I would construct one word plays and huddle. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And then once if once you get comfortable, then you can adapt from there. If you want to get rid of huddling, get rid of it, huddling. But you have to develop a base communication system that you can figure out. Okay, we could start out with huddling, but that base communication system has to be good enough that if you wanted to advance yourself, you could advance yourself, because obviously you don't want to be calling out 28 sweep and no
Right.
huddle. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
this is the limitation that a lot of coaches I see get themselves into, right? Like, I've seen guys, they're like, well, how do you call your system? I'm like, well, I use wristbands. I draw I mean, I literally draw the plays on there, you know, and I have a certain amount. I have 12 plays that are on their wrist, drawn out completely. And then and there's three variations per play on it, right? So it's incredibly simple. They can look at it, call it out, they know exactly where to go. But then I have like a handful of plays that are one word call plays with a couple of tags that are pretty simple that they can go to. So I use that as an example as to, like, there's a communication system. So if I wanted to huddle, I could literally huddle, right? If I wanted to go fast and tempo, I could call it out. I don't have to worry about the coach yelling out, 31 trap. You know what I mean? Like, we know he's running right up the middle. It's 31 trap, so those kind of things, right? So how do you help coaches understand, like, how to build their system, where to start from there? Because I can tell you, like, like I always tell guys, like, why don't you ask me if and then I watch them fumble with their system, and then they're like, and then parents are mad at them. Parents get mad at them, right? They look like they don't know what they're doing, even if they do know what they're doing, but they look like they don't know what they're doing because of communication is not good. And that could be hard at high school and at youth. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would start. And again, it kind of goes back to the optimizing aspect of it. It's like, if you're running, we'll use 28 sweep for an example. Like, do the kids know where the 8 hole is? Do they know, like, what our 2, 4, 6, 8, 1, 3, 5, 7 system is, right?
Right.
I've been in systems where we work 9's the left, 1's the right, and it just goes 1 through 9 that way. So
if you played in one of those ones, I could not remember.
So it's whatever's the easiest for the kids, like what makes sense for the kids and your coaches too. So I would start there. Like, what does the 2 mean in 28? Does that mean our 2 backs getting the football? Does that mean, like, are we just calling 28 and the kids have to know what 28 means? So
right.
Again, it's like trying to break that down. Okay, well, let's break it down even more then. So if we're running 28 toss sweep, does everybody know who to block? And I think from an offensive line standpoint, it's like, let's get lined up we break the huddle, get lined up line of scrimmage, everyone point to who they have right now. Okay. Then we work the technique of how to block them. So that's the biggest thing. It's like, if you're struggling in a system right now, it's like, do your kids know who to block and do they know how to block them? And then everything kind of dominoes from there, because if you can't get it blocked up properly, then you're gonna have issues. But I think especially from a young youth perspective, a lot of kids just don't know who to block, so they just kind of fire off into nobody, and then they end up getting beat to the outside, and your running back is doing this in the backfield, right? So who and how is how we always coach our offensive linemen, and like and having those, we talk about that bridge period from your indie to your team, like that's part of a bridge period for an offensive lineman. Tell us who you're blocking. That way, and if the picture changes because it's blitzing or the guy's stunting, you need to know who you're blocking next. So those, and I think Coach D, you talked about it too, like with the whole Saban thing of like taking it from the classroom to a walkthrough to a live scenario. Like, there's got to be some progression, like we talked about earlier, to your teachings. And I think that in every single position. So like, I'll even go from like a wide receiver perspective too. Like when I'm coaching our wide receivers, we don't just stock block. It's like, I got to teach you how to deploy your feet. I got to teach you how to lock on your hands. Okay, now the guy's moving. How do we shuffle our feet? Like taking through that progression as well, as opposed to just being like.
And that's a conversation in a meeting of how we're putting this, like, hey, it goes on the board. Now you write it in your notebook. Now in pre-practice walkthrough, right? Like, you're working, like, this is what we're going to do. I'm explaining it even there where we could slow it down a little bit more. And now when we get into that actual indie period, now we're hitting the ground running. And and again, everything is filmed. So now we go back and we can watch this drill. And I get it. Time, especially a high school or youth, like you don't have all that time to do that, right? Like I'm fortunate to be at a program where we do have that time to meet before, after, whenever it is, like to get it done or just to film things, right? Like that's different too. But look, it's very simple to have that DB that's hurt film Indy on a phone, and then you can send it to your guys in a group chat and have them look at it and come back to you. Like there's ways to get around some of those things that you can really take it to the next level. But as a coach, you got to be willing to now do that, right? And if your kids want it, like, okay, whatever you guys want, like I'm going to give you, like it's an open door. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like if you tell me you think we need this, I'm going to give you everything to start. Then you can kind of gear it towards how your room is or your team is. I understand, like for a lot of guys, coaches, like it's a lot, like it seems like a lot, but you can now start to chunk and, you know, pick and choose kind of what works with your guys and then hone in on that and focus in on that stuff to get your guys doing the right stuff and put them in the best situations. Cause that's what it comes down to as a coach, right? Like put your guys in the best situations for them to individually be successful. And then ultimately like the team follows suit.
100%. Yep. I agree.
Talk a little bit about, with respect to advising coaches, like they want to get into coaching, what are steps that they should take in order to do that? You know, there's a lot of guys that are like, hey, I'd like to get into coaching. I have no idea how to find the job. I have no idea where to start. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think you got to do is a role that you don't want to do to start. I think everyone wants to jump in and call, right? Like you got to jump in and everyone wants to jump in and call plays, right? It's just not how it works. So I think you got to like, this is why I'm kind of glad, and I'm sure you coaches are too. It's like, you're glad you start young, because I think the growth of learning how to communicate with kids is like the biggest skill that you could possibly have. Because I think if you're someone who just jumps in and you're a rah-rah type person, because again, that's how you were coached and you just want to scream and yell, I think you need to get in at a position that's maybe just a position coach, an assistant to the position coach. Just get your foot in the door somehow. But a lot of that goes back to making connections. Like you got to, the staff needs to know you and trust you in order for them to bring you on. They're not just going to bring on a random person. So
can you give you a bigger role, you know? Like,
yeah. And can you get involved with the youth, right? So I think if you're looking to coach the youth, can you get involved there and then kind of work your way up from there? If you want to get involved with the high school, it's again, what role can you just say, I'll do anything. I'll coach the freshman team. I'll coach whatever you need me to do to get started, and then work your way up from there. I think it's just very tough to be like, I only coach DBs and I'm only going to coach DBs. I think having an open mindset in that aspect will help you a ton too. But that's kind of how it would start, is this connections are everything. I hate to say it in this industry, it's sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad, but it's one of those things where I think if you're going to get started as a high school coach, you got to get your foot in the door somewhere, and then you can make lateral moves to get to your ultimate destination, if it is calling plays or being a head coach.
No doubt about it. You're gonna have to eat a little bit of shit in order to get where you want to be. So that's just how it is. That's part of the learning process. Really great stuff. Now your site Victory, like talk about what you have on Victory. What are some of the resources that you have available for coaches? Talk about that stuff.
Yeah, we actually just rebuilt it. So it was just, we had our paid stuff, and then we had a blog, and then we had, our podcast, all the stuff. I completely redid it, where if you are a head coach, we have an entire database of head coach resources, offense coordinator, defense coordinator, bunch of resources there. Every position coach resources. So if you are a position coach, coordinator, or head coach, and you need resources, how to build a call sheet, how to coach a certain position a certain way. Like, we have a ton of free resources. Every resource you see will have a YouTube video attached to it relatively soon. So I'm really trying to just give away as much as I can and create as much content as I possibly can these next couple months. And then if you want to get into our paid stuff, cool, we'd love to have you. But I just really think that if we're really going to grow this coaching profession the right way, like, we got to just educate as much as we possibly can. And that's where we're at right now. And right now it's just me and my brother Danny running this thing. So we are a little two-man operation. So things aren't getting out as fast as probably I want them to, but it's been a great ride so far, and it's been really awesome the support we've had from a lot of these coaches. So that's kind of where we're heading the next couple months.
What platform did you build your membership on? What's the platform you used?
It's on Circle.
Oh, you use Circle. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, Circle's great.
Yep. And that's really cool. And then the people can follow you on Circle, right? Or something like that. Is that
yeah. There's a community thing that they can follow on if they want to. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Very cool. Very great stuff, man. Really appreciate you coming on. I like how you're back. You're like Derek. You got a nice background and everything like that. You know, you guys are cool. That's why you guys are young. Like I guess I'm starting to become like crusty. Like I don't even worry about my background anymore. So, but yeah, no, really great stuff.
You put a hat on, so that's okay.
I know. I was shocked when I got out of there because I dropped my kid off at school, walked the dog, and it was like, put all the stuff together and sent it out. And then I bombed down here. I didn't even take a look. And I was like, oh my God, I look like the guy from Back to the Future. You know, the
Doc Lloyd.
what is it, Dr. Lloyd? Yeah, Dr. Lloyd. I was like, Dr. Lloyd. Good Lord. Dr.
Emmett Brown.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my God, time flew. So yeah, absolutely. Great stuff, Coach. I wish you the best, man. Keep doing it in Massachusetts. Did you play with Anthony Carnival?
I did. Yes.
Yep. I was Riverdale twice, but I think he was there the second time. I think he was our backup when we won the state championship. He took over the next year.
Yeah.
As starting quarterback. But great. Well,
that's awesome.
Great guy.
Yeah.
So,
love it. Yeah, good friend.
I play with him. Yeah. Awesome. And Nastasi was not there when you were there, right? He might have been after, or he was probably
no.
Maybe he was after. He might have been after. Very, very cool stuff, man. Great having you on.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing more of your stuff. I just went and pulled it up, and I'm going to go through it myself. So keep fighting a good fight, and you're helping coaches. That's a great thing, and we need more guys like you doing that. So
awesome. Appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, this is great.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Have a great day.
Talk soon.
Bye. Excellent stuff, dude. Good
cool
work.
Stuff. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, interesting.
Because I think you talk about it all the time. Coaches, where do I get started? How do I do this? What do I learn? Like, what do I need to know? Like, at least this is somewhere where you could just be like, hey, go check this out, get a foundation, and then we can kind of go into the intricacies of like what you need to do for this team specifically. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's a big piece. You start broad and then you can kind of trickle down, because there are some things that as coaches, like, you need to know. Like, you got to know how to teach. You got to understand certain bigger picture stuff of just like the foundations of a practice structure or whatever, because if you don't, like, you only know what you know. And if your coach went about it a certain way, or when you played, they did things this way, like, you're not going to have any concept of any of that, So I don't know. I think it's just a cool platform to kind of have for guys to go to, and an additional resource that they can kind of go through and whatever.
Absolutely. This is a fun fact. Outside of me coaching football, I've coached a lot of sports. No coach has ever had a practice plan.
Right.
Some have texted me. Well, at least they try that. They'll text me like what they're going to do. But I've never seen anyone else, Derek, ever with a practice plan. Is that amazing? It's not like I coach in some town where there's no athletes. There's athletes everywhere.
Right. It's just crazy.
So I feel like that's a very hard thing for youth coaches to, if you think about it, like the kids you get, okay, not just football, but every sport, right? The kids you get, they're coming from somewhere, right? So just think about it. Like, I don't understand. Look, and I'm sure in Texas it's different. There's no doubt in my mind. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't guys that don't have practice plans. I'm sure there are, but you're not going to succeed there and not have a certain level of structure. Like I remember when I was in Jeff Dykas's office when he was at Duncanville and Lake Travis. I mean, I couldn't believe it. Like I was like I don't go to the level of detail that this guy has got. Like he had books that the coaches could pick up that hold the playbooks. Like they just sit there. So if a guy loses the playbook, like this it was here. Then he had practice plans for the day, past practice plans, a whole thing of past practice plans, right? So
Yep.
if a guy wanted to grab and say, Coach, maybe we should do this, they would go in, walk in with him and say, hey, listen, I think we should do this and thing. Or he might grab an old practice plan and then just implement that old practice plan, right? So it wasn't like he had to recycle. Now, obviously, people had it on computer too now, but he didn't have to recycle. Like he didn't have to go on his computer in some cases. Like he had it all categorized. It was amazing. It literally was amazing. It was like I was like, yeah, I'm telling you, like if there's being around like him, and he was a legend by the time he got to Duncanville. Duncanville did not work out as well as he would have liked it to. Like he made the playoffs, but the guy who came in after him is now put them in the top 10 in the country.
That was the guy that's really taken him too.
Different level, but Jeff was really the beginning. Like he really was the guy that was the bridge. They were bad before he got there. And then they were playoff bound, but he was not able to get enough of the guys to go to the elite level. This next guy did that. He was, but Jeff was fantastic. I mean, there was, he won at Lake Travis, like state championships. He was the one who built Lake Travis. Right. And, I always had that kind of like relationship with him because he kind of was a guy in the Texas world. First he was Iowa, then Texas, who would come in and take over programs and like, build them. And Lake Travis was like one of the first places that he hit pay dirt, meaning like not only did he get to playoffs, but now he actually won championships. It was the first place in his career that he was like now a champion. But he had come from Iowa where he already was kind of a legend there or something in Iowa. And then by the time he got to Duncanville, that was and then he took some other place over for a couple of years. Now I don't know where he is. But I mean, he's older than me. He's probably 10 years older than me. You know what I mean? So he's probably mid 60s. He might be retired. You know what I mean? But maybe not. But he was great quarterbacks coach. Like it was very interesting because his thing was so structured. Like I couldn't hope to be as structured as he was. I'm talking about weightlifting. Like his weightlifting, they had weightlifting plans. Not just what you put down sets and reps. Like this is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna do speed wise. This is what we're gonna do in our. You know what I mean? And I'm sure a lot of Texas coaches do it that way. But it was like a college. That's the only way I could equate it. It was like a college. And I took away from that was like, wow, just think about how much, everybody knows what's going on, how far you can go with things, like if everybody knows what's going on, like little things like that help you get better over longer periods of time. But it's interesting. I just find it interesting that like I've never seen anyone with a practice plan. Never, ever. So I can tell you with Saddlebrook, we were great. Never had a practice plan when I was an assistant. Never. DJ and Amphius had practice plans. Okay. Every single practice. And that's when I was like, I did loose practice plans. Like what he talked about, my first head coaching job, I had loose practice plans. Like I had it down on paper. In like kind of what he said. And DJ was so detailed to a T. It would be like at 3:53, we're here. Like, I mean, he'd be yelling at me like, yo, look at your sheet, dude. Look at your sheet. And I'd be sprinted there with my lineman, God, we have to run. And of course, we were situated at the far end of the field where he would want to start. I thought he did it on purpose, but so our lineman would have to run a sprint. But I learned a lot from that. Like I was like, wow. I'm like, this thing is efficient. It's like a machine, dude. Like literally machine. And I think that it makes a big difference, and I think
Absolutely.
that we undervalue it. We like
Big time. Because
high
we think it's something that's kind of just like, oh, whatever. Yeah, guys do it, but we don't need it. We can figure it out. And then you really quickly, like, I don't care what level it is, you know, emotions, practice, like all that stuff starts, the bullets start flying. And before you know it, you're, oh shit, practice is over. I didn't even get anything I accomplished. Or just like, you know, I think scripting plays offensively, defensively, shit, I do it for special teams. Like I got to hit on this stuff Monday. You know, this is the formations we got to talk about, you know, on Tuesday or Wednesday, right? So that each, like, so the long-term plan, we hit on everything within the week. You don't have that stuff on paper, or you don't have that stuff somewhere logged or wherever. Like, now we got problems. I'm also one of those guys, like I save every practice script from wherever. I still have practice scripts from, you know, 2009 when I was at Passaic Valley for just whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? Like I save all of those things. They go in folders, you know what I mean? And it's there for reference purposes if you need it, right? Or down the road, hey, whatever. Like, I don't know. I've always had this fear of like not having something when I know it's like we've done it and where is it, right? I just want to have that stuff, always have like an answer or something to fall back on just in case, right? So it's just, I don't know, it's kind of how I've always done it, but I think that stuff just really helps. It's really awesome.
It definitely is. And
but you got to be an attention to detail type of person, right? And some guys just aren't like that. They think you can go out there and wing it because it's youth or because it's freshman or because it's wherever, or I don't have the time to do it. It's like, well, that's part of this thing, man. Like, what are we doing?
And the thing that we even get into this, but I think you could even put, like, you should put cues in there if you can, you know.
Yeah.
I don't always do it, but there are certain times where I'll be like, okay, there's something I need emphasized, you know,
right?
I'll put a
like
cue
make
in there.
sure and it doesn't, I think a lot of guys get caught up in the individual aspect. Like, hey, and that's part of it too, right? Like, hey, so-and-so struggles at this. Make sure when we're doing this, you hit on this, or you watch him a little bit more, or maybe implement something else to kind of help that guy. And then, you know, because helping him is now going to help God knows how many people, you know what I'm saying? Like on the team or whatever. But you just got to be on that so that, you know.
There's no doubt. And the, I definitely, I thought his point about the, it helps coaches too that like get so long into their explanations. Like
absolutely, like stop talking.
All my guys, all my youth guys were like that in the beginning. Okay, and now they're like, I'm like, dude, I'm like, if I'm bored, just think about it. Like that's what I tell them. Just think about it. If I'm bored, right? I do get bored pretty quickly. So,
but that's not even the point. Like, I think
I'm bored. They're bored, right?
That's where having, I feel like, a teaching background, especially in special education, like has helped me tremendously in that teaching aspect of it, of like knowing how to present it and teach it while on the field. You know what I mean? Now, like being in a different atmosphere, not the classroom. Now you're on the field, right? Like you got to know how to handle distractions and all those kind of things of like, you know, I thought it was a great point about like the engagement aspect of it. You know, he talked about like keep them moving, compete, and have fun. Like that's part of like everything that has to be built in. Like
absolutely.
100%. Like that's 100%, especially and even more so at those younger levels where the just standing in a line for the most of that. Like some of those guys have never done that before, or you know what I mean? Like just the structure of things is being presented for the first time, where it's just harder to keep them engaged because maybe they're not all in on what they're doing. And mom and dad just said, hey, you're going to this, you know what I mean? So you got to keep those things in the forefront of how to structure it and keep it moving. Otherwise, like, it's a disaster. You know, that's when you got guys wandering off and you got guys playing with grass, or, you know, then, you know, you put them in, then they're grab assing, right? And it's like, then it becomes a discipline issue. Like, dude,
sometimes I've had longer lines because I want them to go really fast.
Right.
Like, you know, like, so I'll look over and I'm like, oh, you know what? That's too long. Shit.
Too long.
Yeah. Like, you know, I like to use like there's a couple kids that have as barometers, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yep.
And I know,
if he can do it, then we can do it.
Yeah. If I see them all of a sudden fooling around, I pay attention, then I'm like, oh my god, I made it too long.
I got to change it up.
I got to change it up, and I think that's important, like being adaptable, like not getting locked in, like you know, sometimes like I have to catch myself. I start to get angry and I'm like, "Up, I made that situation."
Yep, you're
Okay,
like, I created this.
let me split the line here. Just then you guys come over with me. Like, so you have a schedule. You got to be flexible, even if you have a schedule. Like, let's say you only had one thing. I don't know. You had one station planned for this thing. Like, I always think multiple stations are better. But like, let's say you had one station planned, and it was just going really slow because you had 20 kids in that line. You know what? Split it and put 10 kids. Put another line. Doesn't matter.
Hey, I
that
got one kid up going at a time. Hey, put 2 there. Like,
put 2
or
whatever.
utilize guys, right? Like if you're using a ball, right? Have the player that's supposed to go to the back of the line, the kid runs the ball back, hands it to him, so that while you're throwing, you know what I mean? Like there's just another body engaged of doing something, right?
And I'm big on this. Give every coach something to do.
Ugh.
It's very important. Like sometimes coaches don't like to hold bags, right? I tell them, all right, you're holding
got
this
this
bag
one.
from this. You're holding this bag for this. You know why? Because, dude, like I'm no different than you. If I have nothing to do and the head coach is up there instructing and I'm not doing anything, listen. I look off into the distance. What are they doing over there? You know, like I'm no different than anybody else. Like it happens to me, dude. I'm a butterfly. So,
No doubt.
you know, and it's one of these things with, you know, I practice. I tell you, Mike, basketball, my pet peeve. Like, dude, we do basketball drills. Okay. You have to have your head up when you're dribbling. Like, why are we dribbling fast with your head down?
I can't dribble fast.
Yesterday, I said something to the kids. I usually don't because it's not my. I'm the assistant. I do whatever he needs me to do. But like, I just was like, Coach, can I just say something? And he's, yeah. I said, listen, if you dribble fast with your head down, that does nothing. Dribble, if you have to, slower with your head up. Because when I defend you or someone defends you and you have your head down, it's very easy to trap you. The first thing I look for when I'm helping on the on the bench, as soon as I see a kid that puts his head down, the other team dribbling, I immediately yell, near I trap him. It's it. He's done because there's nowhere for him to go. Like you're getting a steal or something's happening, right? You're throwing up a crazy shot.
Absolutely.
He's throwing up a crazy shot, right? Because he can't dribble. He can't dribble with his head up. He doesn't even know where the defense is. So
it's the biggest skill that younger guys, you know what I mean? Like it's hard because you're trying to control the ball and you can't, for the most part, they can't dribble like with both hands real well, and they got to look at it as they're doing it. Meanwhile, it's like, buddy, like, and that's stationary, right? So even just standing there in a stationary position, dribbling and keeping your head up is a skill, right? You're doing a bunch of things at once, and just it's coordination. It's the most important, right? Because if your eyes are up, you got to be able to see everything. And now guys are moving, and then you can see where the defense is going or where your players are going. But it's a skill because you're doing 2 things at once, and that's hard.
It's important to cue what you want to happen in the drill.
Absolutely, no doubt.
And I think most of the time.
How many guys ask, why are we doing this
sometimes
drill?
Forget. Sometimes
Absolutely.
They forget that they don't want.
They're just throwing out drills because they got to keep guys engaged or they got to whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Like the guy that we're with, he does he played basketball. He has good drills. Like I like his drills.
Right. Oh, there's no doubt.
But I'm like, dude, like I just try to tell kids like, okay. And I did it with my kid in the sense that like, the first day he started dribbling, I called up, like when I was going to play basketball, I called up Shane, who I knew was, and I talked to you obviously too. And I said, like, what do they need to know how to do? I didn't know anything, right? I was like the layups. You got to be able to do a layup, right? You got to be able to dribble with your head up. I started doing that literally I don't know when he started, 5 or 6 or whatever. I started right away with that. Like I'd be like, you got to give me 10 minutes of practice, and this is all we're working on.
Yeah.
And like, dude, I could tell you this to this day. I never taught him to dribble between his legs, right? So
it's just kind of something they like.
No, he does it now. He does it now because every coach teaches, like any trainer, they all teach him it, so he can do it now. But like, but there were guys who were way ahead of him, and I said, you know what? You need to be able to cross over. You need to be able to dribble in or out. But that's that will come over time. Okay. If you don't have your head up, and I've watched kids who could dribble between their legs, but they do it with their head down and they get caught. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, you gotta have your head up. I'm like, hey, listen, you can do all I call it fancy dribbling. You can do all the fancy dribbling you want. Okay. If you're looking down, you can't get past me. And I'm 52 years old. And you're definitely can move faster than I can. You can't get past me because there's nowhere for you to go. Their head is down. And so with football, it happens all the time, right? Like as a quarterback, you got to be looking up. As a receiver, are you running a route with your head in the dirt? I see receivers do this all the time. I can't believe it. They do their stuff and their head is down, right? Like, I don't know if you've seen it. Like
all the time.
How are you running a route with your head down? You don't even know.
Because they're so focused on all the other stuff. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday. It's like sometimes you just overcoach it so much that they're thinking about everything. And then you have a guy that's got great hands and all of a sudden he's not catching passes because he's thinking about 1,000 different things that you've kind of brought up. Like, yeah, you got to coach and teach and do those things. But at the end of it, like there still needs to be a positive outcome of like, you know what I mean? Like it's sometimes you're hammering on all these things. It's like, hey, like make it simple, like pick 1 or 2 things a day and go from there, right? Like this practice, we're focusing on this practice, we're focusing on this. Like you can't throw it all out there and expect it all to stick the first time. Retention happens when you keep doing things over and over, and you got to put them in the situations to be.
Absolutely. I a friend of mine that he was the Sam linebacker after I graduated. He came in. I was still going to grad school there for another year, and we became friends. And he was literally the same position he played. He played my position right after, right? And he coached at a really big high school. It was in Arizona, Catholic school, and they were great. I can't think of the name of it. And then I was the head coach there, and then I don't know what happened, but like he stepped down, and his son is the quarterback at the high school he's at now, which is a top 25 program in the country. They were 23, I think, this year in the country, and his son's a quarterback. And he told me, which is really interesting. I was like, wow, we were talking yesterday because he was asking some stuff about recruiting, and he said to me, he said, I said my quarterback, my son, never had a quarterback coach. I've never put him in a quarterback coach. He's like, I coached him quarterback. Now, obviously, he was a head coach, so he obviously he knows about him at the game. He was a very good player too, and he originally played at Arizona, I think, for 2 years, then transferred to UConn. And that so he, the guy was a great athlete himself. Obviously, his son is a really good athlete, really good quarterback. But it was interesting you say he didn't do it because he was, and Arizona is like one of the kings of quarterback coaches.
Oh yeah.
So he said he didn't want him to get wrapped up and go into different guys and getting confused.
Well, because one guy focuses on this, one guy focuses on that, one guy teaches it this way, one guy teaches it that way. Like, it's why I'm really like, I try to explain the high school kids when they come to me and they say, hey, coach, do you know anybody that I could work with or whatever? Right. Like, obviously I have my Rolodex of guys that I would like to send them to or whatever. But I also tell them, like, look, like, no, irregardless of what you learn or take from this trainer, coach, guy that you're going to go to, like, we're going to teach you a certain way when you get back here to the team. And that's what it is. Like, it's good to go to these guys to get a different voice or to learn something new.
I agree.
Or to get some extra work. Right. But that, right. Yeah. But I tell them, like, look, I love that you want to go and do these things. I said, but don't make this the end all be all of like what it is. Like, you're going to get the most work when we're at practice and when we're doing stuff in season. Right. But this is like extra tools to add to your toolbox or something you might be able to learn. Right. Or maybe help you. Like, maybe it's the same thing, but you've never heard it presented to you this way. Right. So that's where I think the benefit from those things really, really hit. Because you're just hearing it from a different voice, you know what I mean? And sometimes the same coach telling you the same things over and over, like, you just kind of, it almost like you tune it out. And then, like, you go to somebody else and all of a sudden it's like, well, it's the same thing, but you're hearing it from someone else, or they coach it different, or maybe you're learning something new that you might never use, but hey, you're getting work. So go do it.
I agree. I think the hardest part for parents is literally like deciphering everything, because if they don't know, if they're not familiar with the sport, they don't know what's not good or what isn't good. And the truth is, none of it's really bad. It's just that are you just out there? I say call it like busy work. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not that it's bad what someone might do. You know what I mean? It's just that, like, you might just be doing more busy work. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's not that doing busy work is bad, because obviously I am of the philosophy that obviously the more you're working, for the most part, you know, as long as you're not overdoing it, you're gonna start to get better. Like, you're gonna do better than people who are not doing things, absolutely. But some of it is busy work. Like does busy work get you where you want to go? It depends on what your priorities are. When you're a youth kid, I think you can get away with busy work at youth level. You know what I mean? Like, I do think at the young levels, busy work is not necessarily a bad thing if you go to a trainer, because you haven't even developed certain coordinations yet and certain things.
Right.
So the busy work kind of starts to give you a little bit of feel of this, a little feel of that. You know, I mean, is the word optimized there? No, but you know, what are you even optimizing for sometimes at a young level? Because you don't. He's built like this at 11, and then at 14 he's built differently, right? So now you got to kind of relearn some of those muscles. So busy work is not necessarily bad at the young level. I think it's when you get up the ladder in high school where it can be hard between high school coaches and trainers, because if you, Derek, says go to a place, like, do you want them to do busy work? Do you want them just to run slant routes to run slant routes? Could he come back to you running slant routes wrong? Possibly, right? You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
so, or slant routes the way that you don't want
The
it.
way I don't want them to do it, right? Or they're teaching things that maybe, like, you know, but look, again,
But
even
at
with
youth,
that,
it doesn't matter. I
no,
think
just go do
just
something.
running slants is good,
Right.
right? But
I
at
think, like,
your level, you might want them doing timing wise,
which is
something
why I love that they'll ask me, and then I can kind of push them to guys that, you know, right? Or,
right.
hey, coach, I saw so and so. Like, do you think that would be good for me to go there? Well, look, let me do some research. If I don't know, let me do some research and whatever, and reach out. Or, hey, yeah, that's a great move. Like, go get some work. Like, you know what I mean? But look, I'm at a place where that's not really a thing. Like, they don't, you know, it's just not what
They're
they
not
do,
doing that much of it,
right?
yeah.
You know what I'm
The
saying? Like,
linemen,
now,
I think somebody. Oh, maybe it's the other school that the linemen.
no, the line, like our linemen, I do have linemen that go and do things, like they
Okay.
want to go and do some things, like, because that's just more of them of like whatever, but they're not going to do it to be like, hey, how does this get me to the next
right.
level?
Right.
They just want to be good
They just want
for
to be
the
better.
program, 100%, or they just want to do something. You know what I mean? Like, because they've never had the means, either the means or access to it, or felt comfortable enough to be like, coach, can you tell me somewhere to go? Right? Like, they've had to build that confidence within themselves to want to go do more, which is awesome. You know, like, that's really cool.
Yeah, that's definitely cool. Very good stuff.
Yeah, tomorrow we'll have Mitch, I think it's Lepaki maybe, at 11, because he's a Central Time guy. He's a DC at an NAIA school in Kansas, so he
good.
does some cool stuff. Like, and I always love talking to the NAIAs in Kansas. They're like, I love it, because they're like, that's the high level shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's
it's like a
NAIA
Midwest
world, man.
NAIA space.
Yeah, they don't mess around out there. So, and I've seen some of the things he's done defensively that I thought were pretty cool. So always interesting to talk to those guys, because to me it's the forgotten level of football. Like, guys here at NAIA, they're like, they don't even know what it is. It's like, no, dude, like this.
I can guarantee you, there's no parent that knows what it is.
Hell no.
There's no way. Like, I don't know how you would even. The truth is, all these years I understand it, but I don't.
Oh, of course. I just, to me, it's less. To me, it's football, but it's less rules than all the others. That's all. It's pretty much what I chalk it up to.
Right. And you noticed about one thing you noticed about the NAIA that you don't see with the NCAA, because they have so many less rules. you don't see a lot of people suing NAIA for anything. Do you notice
No,
that?
because it's like almost everything goes. And here's where my eye opening to the NAIA world really happened was when Coach Manny Matsakis, who we've had on, took an NAIA program over Bethany College in Kansas. And
Yep.
then we sent 2 guys from when I was at West Orange out there to play. And it was like eye-opening of like, whoa, like there's some dudes, because
Yeah,
look,
well,
there's
they're all
football
dudes.
there's football players all over. And whether they were just guys that were under recruited or whether they were guys that had to kind of
Didn't
go fix
score
their
well.
grades,
Yeah.
but wanted to like make a move and maybe like do something different, right? Like go against like the norm of like, hey, I'm just going to go to an NJAC school around here or D3. Like, hey, I want to go and like, play for a guy that like has been at a higher level and is like taking a program and kind of changing it around. Or, hey, I want to go play in that system and like, run jet sweeps and score every time on him, because this kid just used to run jet sweep and he was fucking unbelievable. He's like a little Darren Sproles. Oh my God, dude, like Darren Sproles, literally Darren Sproles. Like, and that was part of the reason, like, why are you playing NAIA? Well, I'm 5'5", but it's like, you can burn, like, and it was unbelievable. But it really opened my eyes to like that Midwest region of like, NAIA is what I would say like Division III is here in the Northeast. You know what I mean? Like there's that many of them and all that kind of stuff. Like it's a different option other than JUCO. So it'll be cool.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt that'll be really cool. I like.
I didn't realize it was back-to-back DCs though, so we're all good. Although we didn't really talk much defensive stuff with Coach that we just
we didn't. I think he wanted to talk more of the victory stuff anyway.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about that a little bit. And look, why not, right? Because it's a really, like, I don't know anybody else with that type of platform or doing that or pushing that out. You know what I mean? And it's not like, again, guys don't come on here to sell. Like he could have tried to sell that and been like, oh, you should subscribe and do this, right? Like he didn't do that. He was like, hey, here's what we built. We're still in the process of building it. Right? It's a 2-man operation, my brother and I. How they haven't killed each other, I don't know. Because as an OC and a DC and dad's the head coach, holy shit, right? Like that's a fucking dynamic that could be a podcast in itself. Especially some Massachusetts guys, man. Like, holy hell, they're probably like, that's probably a wicked coach's office after a loss.
That's probably definitely a wicked.
And using the word wicked and describing it is like par for the course too for us. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
Yeah, wicked, man. Wicked, man. That was a big Connecticut word. Oh my God, wicked. Remember that? Wicked. Well, at least when I was in school, kids would say wicked. In Connecticut, the other thing was they didn't go to the liquor store; they went to the package store. And what else did they do?
The packy.
It was the package store, right? And it closed at like 8 or something.
In Connecticut, they weren't open on Sundays.
They weren't open on Sunday.
So that was always guys be sprinting off that bus after a game when we got home at night, like on a Saturday, like shit, like we got to go because nobody wanted to drive to New York the next day to get a beer ball.
No doubt.
Or a 30 pack of Red Dog.
Red Dog. Oh my God. That's funny. I don't even think that's around anymore.
Hell no. Zima
is definitely not around.
What was it? For the girls, it was always like a high school, right? When you were in high school, like, hey, what are you getting, right? Like my cousin was always the guy that he had a beard in 7th grade, so he could get alcohol anytime he wanted. But it was so he was always the guy that had to buy for everybody. And it would always be so much like Mike's Hard Lemonade for the girls, whatever the cheapest beer, like Bud. We used to drink Bud Ice, like a 30 of Bud Ice. Oh my God, it was brutal. We'd be taking beer balls, right? Because it wasn't a keg. It was more than a 30, but it wasn't a keg. They were kind of light. And look, where I grew up, like we drank in the woods, bro. So like you carried that shit like up a mountain. There was usually a monster bonfire going on. Like shit, it was a lot. But I remember in Connecticut, dude, not having an open liquor store on a Sunday was like, oh my God.
Yeah, it was totally different. That's the only way to put it.
100%.
Well, great podcast, and we will see you tomorrow.
All right, man. 11 though.
11 o'clock tomorrow.